The Godfather.
This that. This that. This that jumpin', yeah. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, dance beat. This that jumpin', right around song of my trees. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, dance beat. This that jumpin', right around song of my dreams. I be ballin' in music like Kobe. I'm the greatest to ever do it, they don't know it. Straight from the streets where the shots came blowin'. I came from the bottom where they hate to see you blow. Mama.
This is 1252 Sports Chicago. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a very special episode of Turtles Take here on 1252 Sports Chicago. With me tonight is Angelo Ace Camacho, a.k.a. Fat Mike's heterosexual love partner, or whatever they say, but Angelo,
life mate.
Heterosexual life mate. Angelo, how are we doing tonight, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. It's been a long week. Lots happened here in Chicago recently, and I'm excited to dive in. We're going to be talking a little bit of both baseball teams. We're going to touch on the Cubs as well as the White Sox. We're going to talk a little bit of Bears because we got to see a little bit of that 1920 football drive was released yesterday. We got to see a little behind the scenes with the draft process as well as some on-field work. And, of course, we got the NBA playoffs, and the fact that LeBron James has been knocked out of the first round. That's always a beauty. So got a lot to talk about tonight, guys. Thank you for joining us. We are guest free tonight, so please be sure to be interactive in the chat.
Yeah.
Jump on the YouTube and the Twitch and comment. We will throw your comments up and we'll chalk it up, guys. With that being said, Angelo, I want to move right into the Cubs. It's crazy to think at the beginning of the season we had such low expectations for this Cubs team. And now to see them sitting in first place is obviously exceeded everyone's expectations. But not just that, they're doing it with a bullpen that we thought was going to be atrocious. So what's your thoughts on where this Cubs team's at, Angelo, and the current state of the bullpen?
Oh, man. So right now, or at least it was, I don't know if it still is statistically, but before yesterday, the Cubs, I believe, had the best bullpen in the entire month of May. So going into the season, we thought that was going to be the completely opposite, right? We thought this bullpen was going to be terrible. Craig Kimbrell couldn't figure it out. And all of a sudden, you got these guys that are just like coming in there trying to make a name, and Kimbrell looks like a completely different player. And it's nuts, man. It makes you kind of regret, if you're the Cubs, trading away Yu Darvish, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because like the real struggle of this team right now has been the starting rotation, not even the bullpen. You know, Kyle Hendricks has struggled. Jake Arrieta hasn't looked that great. Zach Davies has been not good. So having a guy like Yu Darvish in that rotation would definitely it would put you in a different category. Like right now they're in first place, right? But do you or I really think that this team has a shot to go anywhere in the playoffs?
Probably not. I mean, we can touch on that here in a little bit, but it's going to be a push. Even if the Cubs do get into the playoffs, it's going to be a push for them to have any success. in the postseason just because you go against those top ace bullpens. And unfortunately, we just don't have that much firepower in the bullpen. We all know that when we barely have guys that are throwing over 90, it's a concern in today's MLB.
Yeah, and so I think Jeff Passan recently said something. I think was it on ESPN 1000 today? I don't remember. I didn't quite get to sit and listen to it like I normally do. But that he didn't think the Cubs were going to be looking to sell going into the trade deadline. And that's kind of been a topic me and Mike talked about it on Wednesday and the week before. Like, now you find yourself in first place. Nobody thought you were going to be here. What do you do with all these guys? Like, Chris Bryant's having an MVP caliber season. Javi has seen a resurgence since the fans started coming back to the stadium.
Right.
What would you do at this point?
If I'm the Cubs organization, I think realistically, I'm looking to re-sign the best players, and obviously, KB's having a really good season, and he would be the number one guy I would try to retain. I mean, you got to make it a deal that's team. I don't want to say team friendly, but both team and player friendly.
Right.
He's going to want top dollar. Maybe we negotiate a little bit to keep him in town, get a little bit of that hometown discount. For me, I would try to retain Chris Bryant. I know a lot of people, that's the first name. Well, if you're selling, you're going to get high dollar value for him. Absolutely. He's playing, the best he has since that World Series season by far. But I don't buy the whole sellers in this market conversation. I think that the Cubs are at a place where they may be able to buy a few pieces and do just enough to make that postseason run. I mean, obviously the success that we're sustaining now is not going to be there for the entire season. I mean, you look at this bullpen and Jake Arrieta's playing way above expectation. Kyle Hendricks has been kind of down a little bit recently. And that'll probably flip, and Arrieta will be playing down and Hendricks will be playing good down the stretch. But you look at,
you hope, right?
You hope. You look at a lot of these guys that are closers. I mean, I'm a big fan of Andrew Chafin.
I love him.
The guy's goofy, the whole sheriff mentality. And then, he came out on Twitter and said, I came here to strike people out and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Yeah.
And just some of the goofy things that surround him. But
I believe the dude lived in a van for a while. Like, I'm pretty sure that was a thing.
Yeah, I read that as well. So it's interesting to see where he has came from to where he's at now. But I really like the stuff that he's doing as a closer. Obviously, Craig Kimbrell, I mean, his ERA is below 1 right now. I believe it was a 0.82 as of Wednesday night's game. I'm not sure what he's at now. But he's playing phenomenal. I mean, that's way above his expectation. Yeah. He's finally getting into a little bit of a groove. I don't see that being sustainable. That's the biggest problem with this bullpen is sustainability. At some point, we're going to take a downward stretch where we're only going to win 2 or 3 of 10. And it's primarily going to be because of the bullpen. I don't think it's going to be because of the hitting, which has been the concern in years past. I mean, realistically, guys are starting to get on base. We're seeing a little bit more of that small ball mentality, one base at a time, one run at a time. And that's how you win baseball games, especially against really competitive teams that have great pitching. You have to be able to just have that one-run mentality. And, that bang or bust mentality that the Cubs had for so long was just really – it was great when they were on, but it was detrimental to the team when they were off. And over the last couple of years, they've unfortunately been more off than on.
Yes, that's 100% true. They've especially towards the end of the season, it seems like this team really has a problem with like picking up that second wind in a season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you see all these other teams, throughout the baseball season, it's a long season, but most of these teams, when they have, a little bit of a lull, they find that second wind. Good teams do. The Cubs, the last couple of years, they've just hit that wall and they cannot get over it.
And that's going to be the biggest concern, I guess. What are your thoughts, Angelo? Do you think they're going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline? And if you are a buyer, what pieces are you going after?
All right, so like we did this with the Bears right before the draft, what I think they're going to do and what they should do. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to buy. What they should do is still follow their plan, right? They had a plan. All Cubs fans knew, right? We were supposed to be bad this year. Well, we weren't supposed to be as good as we are right now, right?
Right.
You wanted to get younger in your farm system. That's what you should do. I understand everybody's hyped. Yeah, we're in first place. We're in first place in a weak division, right? We're on the road a lot this next month. I think if you can't come out of the month of June 500 or better, you need to really take a realistic look and be like, hey, we're not who we think we are. And obviously the area that they need to focus on is starting pitching, right? Right now, at least. And what do they have to bring in a starting pitching prospect or major league ready starting pitcher? They don't have anything without giving up the guys that they don't want to give up.
Yeah, that's the biggest concern there is the farm system is not good at all when it comes to pitchers here in Chicago. I think everyone that's a Cubs fan knows that. So, I mean, everybody that we could bring up would theoretically be brought up right now if they were MLB ready. So, if they are buyers, yes, they do have to go after some high caliber starting pitching, but then you get into that pickle of at what cost. So do you trade away a guy like Javi Baez to get a couple decent pitchers, or do you trade away a guy like Chris Bryant and hope that some team's willing to give you two aces?
I find it so hard, especially since he's a free agent. You know what I mean? Like it'd be different if he was playing at this caliber with, 2-3 years left on a deal, but what are you gonna trade away two ace prospect pitchers to bring in Chris Bryant for 3 months? You know what I mean? That's not realistic. At this point, if you're the Cubs, you have to be like, hey, realistically, who can we sign? You got to know at this point if you're going to be able to sign Chris Bryant, Javi, Contreras, Rizzo, all those guys, right? And maybe the answer is you just stay pat where you're at and sign the guys that are on this team.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. There obviously is a possibility that they could just go retain all these guys. They could keep KB, Baez, Rizzo, and, kind of keep those three at least as their building blocks. Contreras is another big role player on this team. But, those four guys, I think you can build something around.
Right.
I wasn't so sure of that prior to this season with the way that Chris Bryant performed last year. I was a little concerned. Obviously, it was a shortened season, so you can't really take much off of that season. I don't think nobody really can. It was shortened because of COVID, but at the end of the day, you didn't see enough games to really get averages and really any stats off of guys that were meaningful. So
Right. Last year was a fluke year. I don't care what anybody says. You don't go into a pandemic, your season gets shut down at the start, and expect everything to kind of matter and be as normal as it usually is, especially stats like hitting and pitching. Baseball's always been a sport where you got to get in that rhythm, right? You play long games because you got to see a pitcher a few times. There's a lot of things that go into being a successful baseball player. The battle between a pitcher and a hitter, the communication between a pitcher and a catcher. You know what I mean? Like all those stats, I feel like for last season should just kind of be, I'm not going to say just washed away, but maybe looked at a little differently.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they are, I don't want to use the word irrelevant. They're not irrelevant, but it's not something that you can you can't really look at last season's stats on a guy and say, well, this is what he did last year, so I do or don't want him on my team.
Right. And like, if we're being realistic here, Chris Bryant hasn't been this Chris Bryant in a few years, right? Since he got hit with the ball. You know?
I think that changed his whole mentality. I don't want to say he played scared, but you definitely saw, a difference in his mannerisms, and even when he was at the plate, he was less aggressive, and you're starting to see that. Well, I don't want to say aggressive, because aggressive can be taken as a bad thing when it comes to being at the plate. Javi early in the season was aggressive at balls that were 4 foot outside the fucking strike zone.
He's aggressive all the time.
But realistically, he got a little bit of that swagger back in his step right this year. I think you're seeing him get a little bit more comfortable. I think a little bit to do with that is his maturation. I mean, he's got a kid now, and obviously that changes a lot of people's lives in perspective, and maybe he's thinking more, what can I do for my family long term, and that's be successful in baseball to get a good deal and be able to provide for them. So maybe that plays into it a little bit, or maybe he's just finally out of that slump that he was in because he got hit in the head.
I mean, that's a possibility. Here's his stat line right now. He's 316 average. He has 12 home runs, 36 RBIs with an OPS of 991. That's solid, man. That's a good stat line.
That's an all-star stat line, really. I mean, any guy that's hitting above 300 right now in the MLB is considered an all-star stat line, really.
Right.
Especially with all of this talk about the pine tar and the sunblock and everything else that is just making spin rates go crazy in the MLB. Balls are getting harder and harder to hit. So if you're hitting 300 in today's league, you're doing pretty damn good, especially by the standards of, I don't want to say the cheating. It's almost one of those things like the unwritten rules, right? We don't talk about it until we have to talk about it.
So let me ask you a question about that, right? Like,
yeah,
I was listening to ESPN earlier today, and somebody had called in, I think, and they were talking about, well, what if this is like the pitcher's way of responding to people who are using steroids? Like, cheating is cheating, whether it's pitcher or hitter, man. Like, and Carmen was talking about how, like, pitching, people have been cheating in baseball for hundreds of years. Like, this opens up a whole new conversation, right, about baseball that not a lot of people want to have. And I don't want to pull too far away from the Cubs, but you brought up the spin rate and the cheating, and it's like, if everybody's cheating, right, then nobody's really cheating.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, what is that spot on this pitcher's brim? You've seen it when the cap was taken from the pitcher last week. You saw that clear blotch on the bill of his cap. And after the game, his manager said, well, I'm not trying to single anybody out, but all these guys are doing it. So why are you
so if my guy's
going
to get in trouble, I'm taking everybody down with me is basically what he did.
Right,
so
which is a horrible mentality to have.
Yeah.
But realistically, again, as you said, if everyone's doing it, if everyone's quote-unquote cheating, at that point, is it cheating or is it just something that the MLB turns their eye from? I mean, a lot of people talk, I don't want to get too far away from our topic either, but a lot of people talk about the steroid era in baseball, right?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up because I was going to talk about this. Nice.
You've got guys like Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. For me as a kid, I loved watching Sammy Sosa play baseball. Yeah. I didn't, and then when it did break that he did steroids, I get it. It's any PED is bad for any type of sport from the top down perception. But when you have a guy that's consistently cracking 50 plus home runs out of the park, and that's exciting baseball,
right?
And it's almost one of those things that if it makes it more exciting, and this person's willing to put obviously the physical and mental risks that come with doing that type of stuff, if they're willing to do something like that and the game's more exciting because of it, I personally don't discredit anything that Sosa, McGuire, Bonds did in their careers because they were doing steroids at some point in their career.
I totally agree, man. I agree. Like the idea to keep certain players out of the Baseball Hall of Fame for steroids, I get it. I get the argument of, well, they cheated, they shouldn't be in, they shouldn't reward cheating, right? But like this has just come up, right? All of a sudden, all these pitchers are doing this too. So if everybody's cheating in a sport, or if everybody's cheating in a game of Monopoly, right? Everybody's pulling some money off, then nobody has a competitive advantage.
Right. You've leveled the playing field because everyone is cheating in the same mannerisms. And
right.
With this pitching situation, it's different. It's well documented, that it's been going on for a number of years. And now finally the MLB's collecting balls, they're collecting hats. And from what I've heard, they're very, I don't want to say disgruntled, but upset about the number of substances that they're finding on balls, the number of substances that they're finding on hats. So it's almost like, oh my God, we didn't know you were doing this. But us as the common fan watching a game and you see a blotch on a guy's hat this big, something's going on. We got a comment here in the chat. Today's cheating is child's play as opposed to doing something like players sharpening their spikes on purpose to slice up someone who tries to tag them. And since we're talking about cheating in baseball, how do you feel about the Houston Astros and what they did in 2017?
So, okay, real quick. I don't know who this is because they're not on our Twitch or YouTube channel, so I can't see who's saying this. But I will say this. I'm not in favor of cheating, right?
Right.
But all I'm saying is that if the hitters are cheating and the pitchers are cheating, then everybody's cheating. Then I don't think you should, I don't think we should praise Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, Jose, all these guys that were using steroids and PEDs. I just don't think you should keep them from the Hall of what Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds did. It really kept baseball alive, if you think about it. You know what I mean? Baseball was dying out, and these guys, McGuire and Sosa, that race was what brought people back into watching baseball, and what they did, what they accomplished is Hall of Fame worthy, but you're not going to keep them in, okay, because they cheated. But now all these great pitchers, right? Well, what if they were all cheating? Now that's going to be the question. So I think Pete Rose, right? There's a big thing. Pete Rose doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because he bet on games, whatever. The dude was phenomenal, right? He definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in my book. Do you put it in there? Yeah. Why not put it in there? Sosa should be in the Hall of Fame. He, Chicago Cub, cork bat. Boom. There you go. That's all you got to say. Or people make their own decision about that. Now, as far as the Astros is concerned, I mean, not everybody was stealing signs. Right. And that led directly to them winning a championship. It's not like all these pitchers are cheating, right? But everybody's kind of on the same playing field as far as that cheating. This was cheating that led the Astros to have a major competitive advantage on hitters and caused the other team to do worse because of it, leading them to a championship victory. So that I think is a little worse. I think that's a little bit different. Again, like you said, if all of these pitchers around the league, and it's been well documented that it's not just 1, 2, or 3 teams, it's every team in the league is getting hats, getting balls taken to be examined. And I think the MLB is going to come out with something next year once they analyze all this evidence and say, all right, guys, we're good with the pine tar. The pine tar doesn't do anything for spin rates, but all this other stuff, I don't even know some of the substances they're putting on their hats. I mean, none of us do. Sunscreen and all that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if you look at the velocity and the spin rates, how they've increased and how much harder it's getting for players to hit. There's got to be a direct correlation there.
I mean, Anthony Rizzo was on Cap and Hood 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago maybe, and said something about the spin rate that these pitchers has is ridiculous, and that he wouldn't be surprised if something like this was to come out. And sure enough, this is exactly what happened, is they find out that these pitchers have been using substances to make that spin rate go faster. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm not like a super baseball nerd, so like spin rate, I'm not really sure how much it affects, like how much it affects a hitter. I know that the hitters look at the spin of the baseball to determine kind of the trajectory of the ball. Yep. So I'm sure faster spin rate would make it more difficult to determine when it's going to break and all that stuff. I might be completely wrong. That's just
and that's exactly guess. From, breaking it down as easy as possible. That's essentially what it is a batter looks at the spin rate to know how the ball's going to break, kind of identify the pitch and know their timing, right? So if the spin rate goes up consistently around the league, it makes it harder for hitters to hit because they're used to a baseline spin rate, and now they're seeing much higher spin rate because of these sunscreen and baby oil and all this other shit that pitchers are deciding to rub on the brim of their cap before the game. Like, I've never once gone out to the beach and put sunscreen on the bill of my hat because I was worried my hat was going to get sunburned.
Oh, it reflects that. Dude, that's the most corny excuse I've ever heard in my life.
Exactly. You got caught, own it, move on.
Right. It's almost like that Tom Brady situation, right, with the balls, the deflating of the ball, right? If he would have just come out and said, hey, I like my footballs deflated a little bit more than usual, I didn't know that it was this big of a deal, I'm sorry, it would have been over, done with.
Move on.
Instead, right, you got investigations and all this stuff. Like, you got caught. Own it, say whoops, take your suspension and move on,
Exactly, I agree. Now, going back to the Cubs here, Angelo. So we just saw our Cubs take a pretty bad loss last night. And did the Cubs play today? Do you know?
I don't know. I can look up real quick. Hold on.
I believe today's the second of 4 against
the
Giants, but I might be wrong.
I think you're right. I think they played late. They do. They play at 8:45 tonight.
Yep, that's right.
So,
well, it's a good thing for us. We got that Coast game, and we'll be able to watch it once we're done here on the show.
Once the show's done, yep.
No, I'm just wondering, do you think that the Cubs will stay in first place over, let's say, the next 15 games?
I hope they do. I don't think they will. I think you're going to see them kind of come back to life. I think getting all those fans back at Wrigley last month and I just think that the bullpen played too well. And I know that sounds funny, but like, you eventually expect this bullpen to come back down to earth, right? And when that happens, if your starting pitching is still kind of in the area it's at, you're going to lose a lot of games.
Oh, absolutely agree. I think, like you said, I think we're going to see this team come back down to earth within the next 10, 15 games. And it's going to be unfortunate because I would love to see this team ride this mini wave of success they've had so far, but it's not sustainable, not with the talent level that we have. I mean, unless these guys just continue to have breakout unbelievable seasons, which is highly unlikely, we're not going to see this much success moving forward.
No.
Now, with that, I do want to take a quick break here, guys. We're going to talk some White Sox. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick word here from one of our sponsors, Nick and Ivy Brewing in beautiful downtown Lockport, Illinois.
Hello, this is Paul from Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. We are located at 1026 South State Street in historic downtown Lockport, Illinois. We are very excited to be partnering up with the Fat Mike Chicago Sports Show as well as the 1252 brand because we are one of the few Chicagoland breweries that embrace sports and sports culture. Come in for a fresh brewed beer made right here in Lockport while catching the game of your favorite team. Stay for the live music that we have booked every weekend. Or just come for a cozy atmosphere to enjoy a good conversation with a friend, loved one, or complete stranger. manager. Nick and Ivy makes you feel right at home no matter what the occasion is. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. Visit our website for our up-to-date tap list or to go shopping on our online store at nickivybrewing.com. That's Nikivy brewing.com. Come in today for fresh brewed beer born and raised in Lockport, Illinois.
And we're back again, guys. That was a word from our sponsor, Nick and Ivy Brewing, out there in beautiful downtown Lockport, Illinois. They got a beer after our guy, Fat Mike, the Fat Mike Chicago beer, coming out here soon. So stay tuned for that.
If you ever wondered what Fat Mike tastes like,
it's not
it.
that beer.
No, it's not that. It's not that. I don't want to ruin people's appetite.
Okay, before we move on to some football, I want to touch on the White Sox real quick, Angelo.
Yeah.
So the White Sox are the best team in baseball right now. That's statistically and, everything else. They are the best team in baseball, despite their manager being 76 years old and, should be sitting on the couch taking a nap at 7 o'clock when they're playing a night game. Instead, Tony La Russa is taking a nap in the dugout, but moving on, realistically, the White Sox are the best team in baseball right now. Everybody's hitting is starting to come around a little bit better than it was at the beginning of the year. The bullpen has been absolutely outstanding. I can't say enough about the Sox bullpen. You've got so many guys there. Lucas Giolito's playing at such a high level, and all of their starters have been consistent over this last 20 games. And I think that says a lot about the farm system that the Sox have in place and their ability to develop players and bring them up. Everything's finally starting to come together for that team all the way around. And as much as I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a Chicago sports fan, right? So I love seeing other teams in Chicago be successful. I'm not one of those Cubs fans that's, oh, fuck the White Sox. I want to see those guys on the south side doing just as good as we're doing on the north side. And that's right now, the Cubs and Sox are both in first place in their division.
Yeah,
that's something we haven't been able to say in a long time.
Now, granted, both divisions are weak, but can only beat who's on your schedule, right?
Exactly. Touching on that real quick, I would almost argue that the Sox division is a little bit weaker than the Cubs right now.
I would agree.
Detroit is absolutely trash right now, so that alone is worse than any. They alone are worse than any team in the Cubs division. But realistically, how many games do you think the White Sox are going to win, Angelo, over the course of this season?
That's a good question. What were they projected to win?
I want to say they were projected around 90.
90? I think you're right. I would say that's probably a fair assessment. they have 34 wins right now. What are we, 2 months into the season?
Yep.
I could see, 90 wins. That's a good benchmark, I think.
I would like to see them eclipse that 100 wins, get that 100-win season, which is obviously a very tough thing to do. But I think if any team could do it this year, it would probably be the White Sox.
Right.
Just with their level of motivation right now. Our guy Allen's drunk, but he's saying hi. The level of motivation that's in that locker room, they have that total win now mentality.
Right.
They are going after it 110%. And whether they win games because of Tony La Russa or in spite of Tony La Russa, I think they're going to be successful down the stretch. I'm not a big Tony La Russa guy. I'm not a big fan of the unwritten rules. They're unwritten, so they're not a rule, plain and simple.
Right. They're just not rules.
And not to rewind too much, but the whole situation with your mean Mercedes and Tony La Russa, man, that really showed me kind of his true colors and how much of an old school mentality manager he is. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because a lot of what he does is play that smart, technical, small ball, get guys on base, bring guys in. But on the other hand, at some point you've got to adapt to your players. This Sox team is young, they're having fun. They've kind of got that little bit of that flair similar to what Tatis brings to
Right.
San Diego. And, you know, I love watching Tim Anderson play. The kid's phenomenal. I wish we had a guy like Tim Anderson on our team. I wish that we had half the bullpen that the White Sox have.
Yeah.
But the White Sox have been playing phenomenal. I mean, it's just so crazy to see over the last couple seasons. You know, we've seen them build and build and build, and now they're finally here and they're ready to make that big run. So
my only concern is they have a lot of injuries, right? Eventually you would think that the injuries will kind of rear their head. Now, maybe not as significantly as they could because other pieces seem to be stepping up where those other pieces went down. But you would have to think with a guy like, you know, Roberts not being there, that's a pretty big significant injury, you know, and Eloy being out. Eventually, I would think those injuries would, you know, pop up to be a little more of a, you know, kick for this White Sox team. Maybe not. You know, Mercedes came up and he's been, you know, pretty good. He had a little sluggish after the whole La Russa situation. He kind of, you know, tapered down a little bit, but he had a pretty decent game yesterday. You know, we'll see. The Sox are kind of in the same spot, right? Like, I talked to Mike on Wednesday about it. The Cubs need to make ground up in their division, right? Same thing with the White Sox. I know the Sox are, I think, 4 games up in their division right now, but 3 games up. They're 3 games up in their division. But, like, teams like the Indians aren't just going to stop, like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to you need to use this month to make up a nice gap between you and the next guy. Like, the Cubs are, what, a half game up now? Or a full game maybe? But
I believe they're a full game up,
right. And like, if you can't make up that
one
ground,
game.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, if you can't make up more ground on your competition in your own division, it's always going to be like that chance. If you go into a slump, you know, the Cardinals can overtake the Cubs, or the Indians have played pretty well for the most part. You know, they have a shot at it also. I think both these teams this month is huge for both of these teams.
I would agree. And I think
I do want to say I like those Southside jerseys, though, that they unveiled. I thought they're pretty sweet.
Are the Cubs going to get a North Side jersey then?
Didn't you see that they leaked?
I saw that, but I hope that's not really the jersey, because that Wrigleyville, I like the lettering, but I wasn't a big fan of the shade of blue that they used for the jersey.
I think those jerseys are, if that's the jersey they're going to go with, is a joke. Every other team that got these city jerseys, like, they're sweet, especially the White Sox. Like, their jersey is awesome.
I really like it.
But for the Cubs, I mean, it's just boring. I'm looking for a picture of it right now, but I can't seem to find one because I was going to put it up for everybody to see. But they're not. They're just like, they're like a weird navy color with like baby blue, and I didn't like it personally. I thought it was
it's not what you think of when you think a city jersey, right?
Right.
Like, traditionally, the city jerseys have been heavy in basketball. Like, over the last few years, you know, the Bulls have had some really cool city jersey designs. And as you said, the White Sox jersey looks cool. I think it's going to be hilarious to see it on Grandpa La Russa. But with that being said, I think they look really nice, and the design was really cool, really modern. And it kind of fits the style and the swagger of those players on the White Sox team for sure. And then the Cubs come out and they just have this pale navy blue, off-putting, like, okay, it says Wrigleyville in cursive, cool, but it's not anything that I would spend $120+ on.
No. I'm not a big jersey guy myself. I used to really love jerseys. The only jersey I ever bought myself was Brian Urlacher jersey, and that was a long time ago. But I wouldn't buy that jersey. Like the Whites. If I was a White Sox fan, their jersey is something I'd be like, hey, that's a cool jersey. Even if I don't wear jerseys often, I think I would still buy that just to have. but the Cubs
Oh,
one,
I agree.
I'll pass on that.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully it's a little bit different when it comes out than what was leaked, but we shall
Right.
see. So we talked the White Sox and their record. We talked about their bullpen a little bit. Man, that team is just on fire right now, and I'm hoping that both the Cubs and the Sox are in the same position a month from now, and we can just keep talking about how great Chicago baseball is. Because at the end of the day, I'm wearing my Central Division champions Cubs tee right now. If both the Cubs and the Sox win their division, I think that'd be great for the city of Chicago. It'd be very interesting to see. So why not?
I think it would lead to a lot of bragging rights if, picture these two meeting up in the playoffs and the World Series is North and South side going against each other. That'd be wild. I don't think the Cubs are even going to sniff the World Series, but
if by some miracle we go out and we're buyers and we find some, one or two elite starting pitchers that we can entice to come over here to the North side, not saying at all that will happen, but if we can by some miracle make that happen,
right,
then we might be talking about a whole different team. Who was it I heard today that was going to become available at the deadline? I want to say it was Scherzer from the Nationals.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure though. I can look that up too.
I would love to bring him over to the Cubs. I would sign that guy if he was available in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like they're exploring a Max Scherzer trade. So,
why wouldn't you if you're the Nationals? You're obviously not going to be competitive this year or probably next season. So why not get some value for him? Well, he's still a top dollar player for sure.
But that's the other thing that brings me back to my point. Like, what can the Cubs really offer a team like the Nationals other than Chris Bryant, who's not under contract, and maybe Javi, who's not under contract? Wilson Contreras has 1 year left. Like, they have no farm system. That's the thing. Like, that's why I think they need to kind of just look to stay in-house.
Okay, and I do understand what you're saying there, Angelo, and I respect it. I mean, it's that double-edged sword, right? Either you go out and buy the pieces to try to make a push, or you just sustain what you're at this year, have an okay, right around 500 season, maybe a little bit under 500 if we go through a 10, 15 game slump. And then next year you get some building blocks to strengthen the farm system, obviously be aggressive towards pitching when the market's open between season. And maybe next year you come back with these same four guys on the Cubs that I've talked about, and you've got some pieces around them to now, when we're having this conversation this time next year, it's not going to be, well, they're not going to have enough to make a push in the playoffs.
Right. And it's unfortunate, right, that they couldn't spend a little more this offseason, because if you think about it, if they would have Yu Darvish right now, right, where would this team be right now? And then you bring in, even a little bit above average pitcher for some money. Like,
right,
if your team is hitting and performing the way it is, the stadium is going to be at full capacity by the 11th. Like, that's all your revenue right there that's back flowing, And
was that announced recently that the stadium is going to be back at full capacity?
I'm almost positive they said June 11th.
Awesome.
I will double check real quick just so I'm not giving false information.
No, that's great. I mean, obviously they've moved to 60% now, and as more and more people get vaccinated, it makes sense, especially with recent updates to the way that we handle that, both from the state and the CDC. So
yeah, it does say Wrigley Field will open up to full capacity next Friday, June 11th. So
awesome. I'm all for it. I can't wait to see Wrigley at full capacity again. I mean, just for those that are not Cubs fans or those that have never been to Wrigley Field, I encourage you highly to take a trip there, because it's like nothing else, like no other stadium you've ever been to or ever will be to. So historic. I mean, just being in Wrigleyville, so to speak, doing the walk around,
I was just down there a couple weeks ago, I brought my son to his first Cubs game, first game at Wrigley Field. And I had to wait till I was 28 to go to my first game at Wrigley Field. So
Oh, wow.
he
Okay.
got to experience it at 7. And that was only a 60. No, it wasn't even 60% capacity. But it was just kind of weird being there because there was like nobody there. It definitely is going to be nice to see 100% all the fans going crazy, and we know Cubs fans love when their team is doing well. So this is a perfect time for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, kind of going back to the revenue and how that ties in, I think obviously that will play a factor. Okay, we've got some money coming in now. We're full capacity. I feel like this Cubs team, if they stay where they're at least for a few weeks, will sell out just because, hey, the seats are finally open. We can put an ass in the chair, so to speak. And with the way they're playing right now, why wouldn't you want to go to a Cubs game? Especially, you can get some good seats at a Cubs game for under $100. Like,
I was just thinking, man, like the Cubs got lucky. They did the whole marquee network, and everybody thought the Cubs were going to be terrible this year. And now they're actually performing better than anybody thought. So they got pretty lucky, man. I felt like the marquee subscriptions would be pretty low this season, but I'm a sucker. I have the MLB package, so I can watch the Cubs all the time. Mostly so that I can stay engaged doing this with you guys, because up here in Wisconsin, I don't ever really see the Cubs unless they're on ESPN, or playing the Brewers. So
but I will say I'm not a Brewers fan by any means, but I do like the Brewers Stadium as well. You ever been to a game over there at Miller Park?
Yeah. Actually, I've been to more Brewers games than – well, no, that's a lie. I've been to like 6 games at Miller. Well, it's not Miller anymore. It's American Family and I don't know, something stupid park. But I've been there. I actually went to go see the Cubs and the Astros when it was Miller after Hurricane Katrina hit. The Astros and Cubs played in Milwaukee as an away game a home game for the Astros, and it was not a home game for the Astros. Not at all. So, but yeah, it's a nice stadium. Cool. It's kind of like I've been to Lambeau too, and Lambeau, I hate the Packers, right? But that's a fantastic stadium also, man. Just the history of that stadium. It's a lot bigger than you would think it would be. Then the seats are there's not a bad seat in the entire stadium. So that's a good stadium too.
Interesting. Maybe I'll have to make it up there for a Bears-Packers game.
Bears-Packers, Tarbill and Ace live show.
Well, we are definitely going to get out to a game together this year. We're going to make that happen. But, of course, once we nail that down, what game we're going to go to, then we can schedule something interactive after the game to kind of do a live show right there from Soldier. That'd be cool.
Hell yeah.
Before we jump into the Bears here, guys, we're going to take a quick minute to hear a word from our sponsor, the Jonathan Darren team with the Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Darren, licensed real estate broker with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group in Homer Glen. Are you looking to buy or sell? Have you been disappointed in the past? The Jonathan Darren team with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group focuses on providing you with a concierge level of service during the process of buying or selling. We are a service-oriented team with a fresh and professional approach to selling real estate. Our goal is to combine knowledge, skills, and passion to exceed our clients' expectations, and most of all, we truly care. We are a knowledgeable real estate team focused on offering expertise and innovative solutions for our clients. The Jonathan Darren team has 5 full-service real estate brokers and a dedicated full-time marketer servicing all of Chicagoland. We will customize a detailed plan around your timeline for a sale, purchase, investment, estate, or other needs. Real estate transactions can be stressful, but don't need to be. Let us handle it for you. Visit our website, homesbyjdt.com, or call 708-308-1938 today. Expect better in real estate. Choose the Jonathan Darren team.
Call Mike Bilwardi, the best fucking lawyer in town.
All right, guys, that was a quick word from our sponsors, the Jonathan Darren team with the Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group. If you're looking to buy a home in the area, be sure to reach out to John and his team. They're the best. And then Mark Berardi and Associates, another one of our sponsors here at 1252. I don't have the read with me tonight, but Mark and his team handle everything. I mean, Will's Trust Estates, they're the best in the area. They've got a big group or a big team ready to service any legal needs that you may have. So be sure to reach out to Mark and his team if you're looking to do anything lawyer related in the whole state of Illinois. So
yeah, the whole state, that's a big state. So
no kidding. You ever drive from Chicago all the way down to the southern tip of Illinois? It's horrible, but
I had to take a trip one time when I was 19 for work. I drove from where I live now to Quincy, and that was a miserable drive. And that's pretty close to the southern tip of the border, and it was boring drive.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing but corn and highways.
Yeah,
but
a lot of people don't realize that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
We got a comment here in the chat. Mongo Palooza tomorrow. Absolutely. Out there at Mongo McMichael's restaurant in Romeoville, they're having an fundraiser event for him. It's going to be outstanding. Our guy, Fred Hubner's going to be out there. I believe Fat Mike might be out there as well. It's going to be a good time. If you're in the area and you can go out to Mongo's, definitely stop out and help support him. Obviously, everyone knows that he has unfortunately been diagnosed with ALS, which it's a very
terrible disease.
Yeah, it's a tough disease. I had a family member pass away from it a few years back, and so I know it at a personal level. It's nothing to play with, guys. It's nothing I would wish on my worst enemy. And if you can make it out there to support Mongo and, hang out, have a good time.
Fat Mike will be there.
Fat Mike will be there. So, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Fred Hubner's going to be out there. And I'm not sure, but I do believe some of the ESPN guys are going to be out there as well.
I think our buddy Allen's going to be out there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it. I'm going to try to get down there. I would love to be able to support that cause and, get to hang out with Mike and Allen and Fred and all those guys down there. So I'm hoping to be able to go down, even if it's just for the day, but we'll see.
I hope I can make it up. It's not down for me, it's up, but hopefully I can get out there as well. Only time will tell. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But if you're in the area and you can go support Mongo, please do, guys. It's for a good cause. And, he was such a great guy throughout his entire playing career, his radio and WCW career as well. He's done a lot.
For Horsemen.
Done absolutely a lot for the surrounding cities of Chicago, and it's extremely unfortunate to see what Mongo's going through, but you
could just kind of tell the kind of person he was, right? Because of how many people care about this cause, right? Like if this was just somebody, it might not be getting as much traction, but people like the kind of person that he was, man, clearly he touched everybody's life that he entered. So make sure you guys are trying to, go there, help him out. They also have the Team Mongo page on Facebook that has a link for his GoFundMe page where you can make donations on there also.
Yeah, I saw that just eclipsed 200K today. So really speaks volumes to the individual that Mongo is.
Yep.
Moving forward, Angelo, I want to talk about the Bears a little bit. So did you have a chance to watch the newest episode of that 1920 football drive that the Bears released yesterday? I believe it was.
I watched a little bit of it. I didn't get to watch all of it yet, but I watched the beginning. I watched up until Tevin Jenkins was picked.
Okay. So, yeah, obviously a lot of that episode focused on the draft and kind of showed us the draft room and how ecstatic everyone was. You saw Matt Nagy hugging Sweaty Teddy when they made the Justin Fields pick, and Sweaty Teddy. I still think they should get rid of that guy, but you saw so many, behind the scenes bits, and you saw Justin at his house and how excited he was to be coming to the city of Chicago. And my favorite part of the whole episode, which what I want to fast forward to, was they highlighted some interaction between Coach Laser and Coach Flip with Justin Fields. And, obviously it was some film from rookie minicamp and a little bit of OTA. But as small of a sample size as it was really interesting to see how highly the coaching staff speaks of Justin Fields already. To me, that was quite pivotal. You've got a guy who's just now learning a new playbook in and out and has came in. He's making the right reads already. He's throwing balls to receivers on the run on time very accurately, which is something we didn't see with Mitch Trubisky. I didn't want to say his name, but I just did. And it really makes you wonder, is this going to be the Russ Wilson and who was it, Matt Flynn situation there in Seattle all over again? I think it almost has to be to a certain extent. I don't want to beat the dead horse. I've brought it up before, but there's so much excitement around Justin Fields and, his ability to play the quarterback position at an upper echelon that we haven't seen in Chicago. I don't want to say in a long time, ever. We have never had a top-tier quarterback in Chicago, Angelo. Do you agree with that?
Obviously, Cutler was probably the closest thing to that upper crust of quarterback class, but even that was, you never knew what Cutler you were going to get. I will never say a bad thing about Jay Cutler because he was my favorite quarterback to this point. But yeah, Justin Fields, we have this thought, right? Because of the type of quarterback he is and who he compared himself to was Russell Wilson, right? That's why, like you said, the Russell Wilson situation in Seattle when he got drafted. But it broke today that, the Bears promised Andy Dalton that he was QB1 for week 1.
Yeah, I heard that, and it's just like our guys Carmen and Yurko over at ESPN 1000 said today. That was a conversation at best. It was, hey, Andy, we're bringing you here. We think you're better than Nick, so you're going to be the starter week 1. Well, plans change. I'm sorry.
Promises are made to be broken. Isn't that the old saying?
I've heard that saying a lot, but it is true, especially in a business like the NFL. I personally never thought that Justin Fields would drop to 11. No. And I wasn't even so sure that the Bears would move up and make a pick for a quarterback at 11 or 12, just because I didn't think that part of me thought that Sweaty Teddy and the powers above would not let Matt Nagy and Pace leverage the future of the team to try to save their own asses. But in hindsight, we did great things in this draft. Not only did we go up and get our quarterback of the future, a guy that should have probably gone in the top 5 or 6 easily, now we've got the guy that the Bears should have really taken if they stayed with the 20th pick in Tevin Jenkins. So not only did you go out and get your quarterback, you got an future all-pro, I would say, tackle to protect his blind side. You've gone out, you've made other moves on the offensive line. We drafted Larry Borum. They retained Jermaine Ifedi, and Coach Castillo has said that they think Ifedi's going to be not an all-star, Pro Bowl caliber player next year. Right. So I sure hope that everything pans out for this Bears team. I think with the amount of hype that's around it right now, we can't go 8-8 because of the extra game, but another 500 or right around 500 season does this team nothing. So, it'll be interesting to see what we do.
Like, my thought process on the whole Justin Fields thing, and I'll be quick with it. Like, Andy Dalton, there is no future with him, right? He's just here for this year. If Fields is the future, why not just put him in week 1, develop that chemistry between him and the O-line, him and the receivers? What's the worst that happens? You have a losing season this year? Okay. But going into the year, we expected that to be the situation anyways. Why not give this kid the chance to get experience, play with these young guys, and then next year when hopefully you're able to kind of, spend a little more money, you can revamp that defense because that defense is getting old.
It is.
And they're not going to be the same here in 2 years, right? So
will he be ready? Darren's saying here in the chat, will Fields be ready?
So it doesn't matter, though. Like, I get it. If he's the guy that everybody thinks he is, well, what if you stunt his development? Then he's not the guy, right?
Right.
If he's the guy you think he is, then playing him week 1, if he struggles, he'll figure out a way not to struggle. He'll overcome that. You know what I mean?
Right. He'll go through some growing pains for sure. I mean, every rookie does.
Yes.
But I think putting him on the field week 1, if he just comes, and it's obviously contingent on camp, if he comes into camp and just plays outstanding and he's clearly the better quarterback out of, I don't even want to say the 3 because Nick Foles is obviously the 3rd string no matter what. But if he comes out the better quarterback of the 2 and he's just clearly superior to Andy Dalton in every category, how could you not start him?
Even if he's not superior, if he's the same, if him and Dalton are on the same exact playing field, they're both the same, why wouldn't you start Fields over Dalton? Period. Right? Like if he's significantly worse, which I doubt, but if he is, then yes, I understand starting Dalton, letting him have, clearly he's not ready. But so Dalton plays 4 or 5 weeks, right? What in that 4 or 5 week span could happen, right? You could lose wide receivers, you could lose offensive linemen, and then you're going to throw him out there with guys that might not be the pieces that he needs to go, right?
Right.
So then we're going into this next year. Well, he didn't have, Darnell Mooney was injured and this guy was hurt and blah, blah, blah. The defense was this and that. It's not even just about the players, though. Like, we need to see if Matt Nagy can be the coach that he was brought here to be, right?
The offensive guru.
Right. Like, if you're going to – that's his guy, right? So let him do his thing. Because what if this year goes through with Andy Dalton, right? And Field starts next year and we find out Matt Nagy's a terrible play caller. Well, we already kind of have that assumption, but he's just a terrible coach, right? Now you're in an even bigger situation because now you have to go get a new coach for this kid 2 years into his development. That's going to mess everything up again. It's just I think it's only positive to start him week 1. I'm in the minority, maybe, but that's just me.
I do agree with the points that you made there. You don't gain any value if him and Andy Dalton are on the same plane. You don't gain any value by starting Andy Dalton. There's no way in hell that Andy Dalton's going to start this entire season, for one.
Right.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
So, you put all your chips on the table and going in, you say that, why not start him as soon as you think he's ready? And I think he'll be ready week 1. The kid literally scored higher on a football IQ test than any other college athlete that's ever been tested. That's huge.
Yeah.
He remembered a play that Matt Nagy asked him about pre-draft and repeated it perfectly to him on draft day.
Yep.
Like those are things that you can't discredit. And to see going back to 1920 football drive and the Bears presentation of that, to see Coach Laser and Coach Flip speak so highly of him already, and I heard them screaming on that presentation. Way to go, way to hit the numbers, great job. That's how you throw a ball. That's how you hit the seam. All of those things, don't get me wrong, they're not going to show the botched throws. They're not going to show bad highlights on something like that. That's a Bears media-driven event. But at the same time, I haven't seen anything bad. The media spoke very highly of how Justin was when they were able to attend OTAs there last week. Like, why not start the kid if he's ready? Mm-hmm. The future is now mentality, 100%.
You know what this whole, since the draft process really has shown a light on was just how little faith they had in Mitch Trubisky, right? Because you never heard them talk this way about Mitch. With confidence, oh, he's working on this, or we want him to get better at that. What they've talked about with Fields is that he's he's where they want him to be. He's the guy they brought in who they thought he was going to be. And poor Mitch, this guy right here, he always looked lost. And
you're not allowed to put that puppy dog face shit up on my show.
To me, that's what really stands out about this whole thing is, as much as people wanted, well, is it Mitch or is it Nagy? Like, the whole organization never really seemed to talk this way about Mitch.
Right. No, not even his teammates. I mean, who was it? Eddie Jackson got kind of caught on Instagram or Twitter, one of the two.
Instagram Live, I think.
Instagram Live, when they made the pick, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, we got a real quarterback or something of that effect. He stopped himself.
We finally got ourselves a real
He stopped himself before he said it completely, but everybody knows that's what he was thinking. And I think that's one thing with the defense when we talk about their hopeful resurgence this year under Sean Desai is that defense is going to play a lot harder if they know they have a quarterback in the backfield that can score points.
Right. It's like that team will know. That team's going to know if Justin Fields is ready. Right?
110%, yeah.
And the only thing we can hope for is that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are honest about when he's ready and aren't just like, well, we promised Dalton this and that, blah, blah, blah.
I don't care about a promise at all. When it comes to that regard, things change. We didn't know he was going to be available when he was available. So the Bears made the smart move. They went out and got the quarterback of the future. Sorry, Andy, you're on a 1-year deal. You're making fucking $10 million to be a backup, potentially.
That's right. Let me tell you, it could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. So I get it. At the time, they told him he was the starter when he was coming to Chicago. Of course he was. You had fucking Nick Foles on the roster.
Yeah, the human statue. That dude was so bad.
I mean,
I wanted so badly for Foles to be a solution to the Trubisky
answer
problem. Yeah, and the offensive line was just awful too. But that dude could not move, man.
If the offensive line was above average, I think Nick Foles probably could have had some success because we saw it with Philly, right? When Carson Wentz got hurt and he went in and carried them to the promised land with Super Bowl MVP, blah, blah, blah. We've seen Nick Foles be able to compete on the highest stages, but our line and that type of quarterback don't mesh. You can't have a strict pocket passer that can't run to save his life as your number one quarterback in a system like Chicago was. Now, that being said, going forward, I think Andy Dalton could probably succeed a little bit more behind this future line that we're going to have out there this year than he did with Dallas last year.
Yep.
But I don't get it. I don't get why anyone would think you have to be loyal to Andy Dalton. That guy's coming in brand new, just like Justin Fields is. It's not like he's a seasoned veteran. Like everyone compares to the Patrick Mahomes situation, right?
He's not even on the same. Right.
Alex Smith was a seasoned veteran, who was well respected by Kansas City. He did just enough as a starter. Alex Smith, I always say, was a great game manager. He's not a guy that's going to go above and beyond. He's a guy that will keep you in every single game.
Right.
And he played with a hell of a lot of determination. And then obviously, he had that injury. He came back and still played with determination and was a game manager as well. But it's one of those things where the situations were polar opposite. Alex Smith was good enough to be a starter at that point. I mean, obviously it came to the end of the season and they just saw, okay, we have something special in Patrick. We're going to let him start. I think he only started week 17 of his rookie year. We're not going to have something in Andy Dalton that's worth shadowing Justin Fields to the world, especially if Justin's ready. If we go into training camp and he just comes out looking like a clear shoe-in, start the kid. Put him out there. If he has some growing pains, he learns on the way, so be it. If he's as good as we and everyone else thinks he's going to be, he'll adapt and he'll move forward with it.
100% agree. And here's another thing. Andy Dalton has as many playoff victories in his career as Justin Fields does, and Fields has never played in the NFL. So
And that's zero.
What are you really getting that you're that hyped about that you couldn't put Justin Fields in first? You know what I mean? So
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's my thought as well. I think we agree there, and I think we've covered enough Bears for today. But moving forward, as we get further into OTAs and we start seeing training camp and all the players are mandated to be out there, it'll be interesting to see. I want to see how he performs, and two, how the media reacts to his performance. So it's a great time to be a Bears fan. I can't say that enough.
So Darren brought up Rodgers, right? Real quick. I know you and Turtle like to talk about a lot of different sports, a lot of different teams. I got this buddy, right, that I work with.
Yep.
He came in the other day to work. He goes, man, I just read this article that Jordan Love is looking really good in camp and blah, blah, blah. And he's trying to convince, I think, himself that the Packers going from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love is going to be just a seamless transition. He came in, I'm like, dude, you really think you're going to go from Rodgers to Love and you're still going to win 10 games? Like, yeah, man, absolutely. Dude.
No way.
Listen, I know a lot of Packer fans in this area. A lot of you are my friends. That's not going to happen. Like, it's not. You know how I know it's not? Because if Love was that guy, they wouldn't care about all this Aaron Rodgers stuff. Period. End of story. Right? Like, if Love was as good, then the Packers would just move on from Aaron Rodgers.
We have Darren here saying in the chat, no way, it's Favre all over again. But
yep.
I agree. And just to touch on that real quick, Angelo, the statistical probability of the Green Bay Packers having 3 back-to-back-to-back Hall of Fame level quarterbacks is sub 1%. It's time for the Packers to have a shitty quarterback. I'm so ready for the Packers to have a shit quarterback.
I'm not going to lie. If they get another Hall of Famer, I'm going to be kind of pissed. Like,
right. What are they doing up there in Wisconsin at that point? But, realistically, it's statistically not probable that they are going to get another top-tier quarterback in Jordan Love. Right. And, again, if you were so sure of this guy, you wouldn't be going out and getting guys like Blake Bortles and, other roster fillers. They signed another quarterback, too.
Yeah, some like third stringer from another team. I don't know.
I think Aaron Rodgers is – I think Aaron Rodgers is as good as gone. I think when he has to report and he doesn't, I think you'll see him traded, and I think you will see him traded to the Denver Broncos.
So if the Packers were smart, right, the Texans still want to trade Deshaun Watson. I'd be like, hey, I'll give you Rodgers and our first-round draft pick next year for Deshaun Watson. Boom. Because then you get Deshaun Watson as the Packers, and the Texans get Aaron Rodgers, and it'll probably piss him off, so he won't be happy either way.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that scenario, Angelo, because I want to see the Packers have a crap quarterback.
You're right. So send him to Denver for Drew Lock and Jerry Jeudy, and we'll call it a day. I like it.
And give us they'll get a bunch of picks in return, obviously, too. But, even if it's just for 1 year, I would feel so much better as a Bears fan to see Justin Fields come out in his rookie season and beat the Packers twice because they don't have Aaron Rodgers. Or I would feel great if they do have Aaron Rodgers and he goes out and beats the Packers twice.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously. I mean, how crazy would that be? We can sit and talk what ifs all day, but realistically, I'm just looking forward to seeing Justin Fields take the field, no pun intended. And I'm hoping that Aaron Rodgers isn't in our division come the start of the season, but only time will tell. Real quick, guys, we're going to take a quick word from one of our sponsors, the White Oak Farm venue out in Michigan City, Indiana.
Honey, will you marry me?
Yes, yes, yes!
Let's get out of here.
Come to Indiana's premier venue. Come to the farm. Come see all the wildlife. Come to White Oak Farm Venue in Michigan City, Indiana.
Come to our 80-acre sanctuary right off I-94 in Michigan City, Indiana.
Come see all we have to offer from 2 brand new Amish-built barns with climate control.
Come see the ponds with beautiful waterfall, meadows and wildflowers, and so much more.
Come see our secluded venue. After you enter our private road, you'll be in your own world away from it all, with outdoor ceremony spaces, wood-fired pizza ovens, and lots of fresh air.
Come enjoy Northwest Indiana's premier wedding venue, where you gather with your family and friends. Stretch your legs and enjoy the most memorable day of your life.
Visit White Oak Farm Venue at whiteoakfarmvenue.com or on Facebook/Instagram.
All right, guys, and that was a quick word from the White Oak Farm Venue. That's actually where our guy Fat Mike's going to be getting married. I think I might actually have to crash that wedding. Just kidding. I'm so happy for Mike and Megan, and hopefully they have a great wedding, and it looks like a beautiful place. So if you're looking for a wedding venue, be sure to reach out to White Oak Farm
We
Venue.
got everything people need here, right? You get married at White Oaks, then you call John for a house, and then you can call Mark Berardi when your marriage goes to shit. Boom. A one-stop shop. That's what we are here at 1252 Sports.
And then you go to Nick and Ivy to drink your sorrows away.
Hell yeah. Boom. All connected.
4 for 4.
4 for 4.
Real quick, guys, before we wrap the show up, I just wanted to touch on something. We said we were going to talk playoffs. There's one topic specifically that I want to touch on real quick, and that is LeBron James. I absolutely hate LeBron James as a basketball player. I shouldn't say hate. Hate's a strong word. I very much dislike his attitude and the way he presents himself towards the game. The other night, we saw him with 6 minutes left on the clock run to the locker room like a baby because they were being beaten so bad that he didn't want to stand there and watch the rest of the game and support his team. That is horrible. We got a comment here, Suns for the win. Absolutely. I love it. I love that the Lakers got eliminated in the first round. For one, because I think it finally, and I'll ask your opinion on this too, Angelo, I think this finally ends the GOAT debate, right? This finally ends that debate between is he better than Michael?
So I got one question. Was Michael Jordan the best player on his team anytime he was on the floor?
Yes.
Okay. LeBron James, can you say the same thing? No. He's not even the best player on the Lakers right now, clearly, because without Anthony Davis, that team is terrible.
I was going to say AD's the best player on that team, clearly. So
that series was over. Right? That series was over the moment he walked to the locker room. They were not winning Game 6. There was no way.
I would agree.
That team didn't want to deal with him. That's what happens everywhere he goes. He was in Cleveland the first time. That team got sick of him, went to Miami, right? You lose the first year, then you win one, and you win, you win, and then you lose again. And the way you lose, you piss all your teammates off, leave, go to Cleveland. Same thing. Lose the first year, then you win, then you leave because you piss everybody off because you lost the next year. And that's the thing is LeBron is a sore loser, and the GOAT debate is done, period.
It's over. Personally, I agree 110%, but I would go as far to say even if LeBron, which it's not going to happen, people, if LeBron went out and won 6 championships back to back to back tomorrow, it wouldn't change my opinion on that. Here's
the real question, right? Do you see this Lakers team winning any more championships?
I don't. Not with a first-round exit this year. Nope. I mean, you showed how one-dimensional you are as soon as AD went down. And to show that LeBron James is not even the best player on his team, as you said, ends that debate. You could say the same. There's a lot of other guys that I would put before LeBron James. I would put Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, before LeBron James. I would, because I'm biased, because I loved watching him play as a player, I would put Allen Iverson in that argument before LeBron James.
LeBron is more of a Magic Johnson type. We talked about this, me and Mike, on Wednesday. Like, the comparison to Jordan, that was all just made up because he crowned himself King James.
Right.
And yes,
no one else did.
Right, and I'm not going to say he hasn't been the greatest basketball player that's played the last 15 years, because in reality, he has been the most dominant basketball player, right? And the dude's a fantastic human off the field or off the court, but like, it just goes to show, like, he's such a sore loser. You can tell just by what he does on the court. He's always complaining. He's always looking for like an easy call.
The flops.
Yes, the flopping.
The flops fucking kill me. I can't do it.
It's so ridiculous. Like, especially in this playoff, because we watched Kevin Durant go down in a game hard, bounce right back up,
get right back up,
and finish the game. LeBron fell softly to the floor, and he acted like he got shot in the foot. He was on the ground forever, man. It was ridiculous.
80 seconds or something crazy. Come on.
He got poked in the eye. I get it. It sucks.
Yeah.
But what happened after he got poked in the eye, right? He hit the game-winning three, and that's all he – I was seeing 3 baskets, and I shot for the middle one.
Using a Rocky line.
Right. But, like – and then, for instance, the losing here, right? It was never, we got to play better. It was, AD's hurt, and we're not really at full strength. And too bad, because if we were at full strength, I'd like to see what blah, 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 blah. You're the greatest player in the NBA. Like, or so you say. When you claim that title, you have to be the aggressor, right? He knew.
Chubbs.
I love Chubbs. He knew that he was going to have to put this team on his back, right?
Right.
And he didn't. Instead, he walked out on this team, period.
And that shows you everything that you need to know about LeBron James and his demeanor as a basketball player. Because Michael Jordan, not for 1 second, would ever do that to his teammates. Michael would ride you until you hated him, but then you'd love him the next night because you won the game by 20 points. I mean, Michael Jordan was the ultimate competitor. He brought other people up to his level.
Right.
And that's something that I've said before is either you bring people up to your level or they bring you down to theirs. And I think in this case with LeBron James, he got brought down to the rest of the Lakers level because AD wasn't there to help bail him out.
Right.
But Michael was such a dynamic player. I mean, the guy was nothing like we will ever see in modern day basketball.
No.
And that's fine. Obviously, the game's evolved. They're talking about adding a 4-point field goal, whatever. Do whatever you want to do with NBA basketball. I'm game for it. If you want games to be 200 to 150, I'm game for it. Whatever. I don't care. Chubbs here in the chat saying LeBron did his typical thing and blamed the loss on Anthony Davis.
Just
Absolutely.
like when they lost, just like when the Heat lost, he blamed it on Chris Paul being not too healthy, or not Chris Paul, Chris Bosh not being healthy. It's the same narrative. The only thing his teams ever really get better at doing is learning how to flop. Period. Everybody on his
I would
team,
agree 100%.
I feel like they spend an hour on that at practice. Like, this is how you flop.
This is how you take a solid flop.
Flopping 101.
So much so that NBA 2K put a flopping button on the game this year.
That's ridiculous. I had no idea that was
It's horribly ridiculous, but yeah, you can double tap the circle button and your player will take a charge.
Oh my God.
I swear to you.
Like, some athletes change the game. Michael Jordan, Devin Hester, hell, LeBron James has done it. Changed NBA 2K, man, forever. It's ridiculous.
You will forever have a flop button because of LeBron James. And then to wrap it up and get through our rant here about LeBron, then he was talking about Space Jam, like almost immediately after he was blaming it on Anthony Davis not being there. Then he's like, well, Space Jam's 2's coming up. Are you going to watch Space Jam 2?
LeBron didn't go. No. I mean, I might watch it just because I have kids and I'm sure they want to watch it. But
no, put the original in for him.
What kids nowadays know who Bugs Bunny is?
Not many.
Not many. No. That's the thing. Back in our day, we knew who Bugs Bunny was.
got a comment here in the chat. In the fourth quarter, every shot the Lakers missed, whoever was under the rim, the Lakers just flopped to the ground, hoping it would get a foul call on the rebound.
I mean, did you even see, like, towards the end of that game, he stopped running back on defense. He just started walking the court. Like, okay, so you
are a professional.
Right. A lot of our guys that watch us listen to ESPN 1000, and I can't remember if it was Meller or Jeff Meller or Danny Zetterman that are on with Cap and J Hood, but one of them said something like, LeBron has embraced the role of being like the role model, right? He's embraced that, but then you're going to act that way. Like, you're not showing good sportsmanship. And if you want to embrace a role model position, which, hey, I still believe that if you have kids, you should push your kids to role model something yourselves or, somebody else other than professional athletes. But if you're going to take that stance and be like, I want to be a role model for kids, how are you going to act that way when you're losing? Like,
you have to be the total. You have to be the total package when it comes to being a role model, and LeBron James is not. My daughter's going to be 4 in October. If she grows up and plays basketball, great. I don't want her to idolize LeBron James.
That's right.
It's one of those things. And again, our guy Chubbs here in the comments saying, I think half his teammates hate him and the other half work for him because they're represented by Clutch Sports.
Yo, that's such a good point.
I like it.
That's such a good point. Because I think Anthony Davis is represented by Clutch Sports.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
He is 100%.
Like, LeBron, 6? I didn't know that. That's 6 crazy.
Players. That's absolutely wild.
LeBron is to the point in his career, right, where he doesn't really need a coach. He's the coach, right? And I think the first person that's going to go is his coach. I think they're going to fire Frank Vogel, which is kind of bogus, seeing how he just won a championship. You're going to fire him a year later. Whatever. It's LeBron James. He'll bring in some guy that he wants, like he always does. But let me ask you this question.
The cycle will repeat. Go ahead.
Right. So the bubble last year, right? There was a 4-month break between the end of the season and the bubble. Do you think if that bubble never happens that the Lakers win that championship?
I don't.
I don't either. That gave 4 months to LeBron and Davis to rest. I don't think LeBron has that next go button that he used to have.
He doesn't have that full speed in the tank that he can kind of turn on when he needs to anymore. For sure.
Right.
You definitely see him play somewhat fatigued down the stretch of the season now, and it shows again not just in his attitude, but just in how he's developed as a player as he's aged. Jogging up and down the court, not wanting to play solid defense in the third and fourth quarters, flopping to try to get a foul so he can get to the line and take a breath for a minute. Whatever the case is, it's one of those things where I like that take, Angelo. I do definitely agree. I don't think that we would have seen the Lakers win it last year had it not been for the break before the bubble.
I really wish we had more time. I mean, I guess we kind of do have more time, but because we can control when it stops. We try to be done by 8:30, but it makes you wonder what's next for this Lakers team, right? Because if you're looking at the current state of this Lakers organization, the only really for sure pieces are LeBron and AD, right? And AD's proven he can't stay healthy. So what are you going to bring in? Who's going to want to come and play with an aging LeBron and Anthony Davis that's never healthy? It's not like it used to be, right? Where when he went to Cleveland, he had just had, some great seasons with Miami. He's coming back to Cleveland. Let's get a couple pieces and we're good to go. This isn't that anymore. You're not going to get a guy like Dame Lillard who's already on a team that's struggling and hurt all the time. Why would he want to come on to the Lakers? Yeah, true. I love Chubbs. Whenever he comes in, man, he's always spitting straight facts.
Oh, absolutely. Brings a great conversation to the show.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, realistically, he's not going to be – I would say the Lakers are not going to be the team that's going to attract big names anymore. No. Any team that LeBron James is on is not going to be the team that attracts big names. I mean, we saw it with Brooklyn, right? You got Kyrie, you got KD. I just want to say I am a big Kevin Durant fan. I've always loved watching that guy. He's just such a great 3-level scorer. He plays good defense for his size, and he's a fun basketball player to watch. Yeah, I mean, he's a fun player to watch. But you go and look at that Nets team. You've got him. You've got those two. You've got Blake Griffin now as kind of a backup role. Just so much James Harden, obviously, even though I wasn't happy with the way he left Houston. You've got so much talent on that roster. Chubbs is saying Kawhi Leonard and Paul George went to the Clippers, and they grew up Laker fans. That's how much they didn't want to play for LeBron. Absolutely. I think
I do want to say, man, Kawhi Leonard has really disappointed me in these playoffs, man. Like, you come to Los Angeles, right? And he made it a point to be the anti-LeBron James. He went to the Clippers because he wanted to be – the Clippers were better than the Lakers, right? That's what he wanted. And they have not lived up to that hype. They're going to get eliminated by the Mavs. And you got to look at that team and say, okay, well, 2 years in a row, you guys have underperformed. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets blown up also. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't disagree, but also the Dallas Mavericks have Luka Doncic,
who next year will probably be the best player in basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would argue that he probably was the best player on a subpar team this year. I mean, other than himself and Kristaps Porzingis, who do the Mavericks have that's a top tier player?
Nobody.
And Kristaps Porzingis hasn't even been performing at a top tier. So you've got literally Luka Doncic out there scoring 42 with a line like 42, 7, and 7 in a game. That's outstanding. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That's good basketball. So
how do the Mavericks just draft all these European guys that are so good? Like
Dirk, and then now
Luka.
That Dirk's gone, you got Luka. Maybe it's some ties within the organization.
Chubbs here saying
count the Clippers out yet.
Listen, Chubbs, like, I want to see Kawhi Leonard win because I like Kawhi. I like him as a player. I didn't like how he left San Antonio. But I just like the caliber of player he's shown to be. But I don't know, man. I don't think this Paul George thing is working. I think Paul George has shown that he's a guy who on his own team will shine because he's the best player on that team. But when it comes to having other players and pieces, he can't, like we talked about, he can't elevate anybody. He doesn't make anybody better.
Our guy Darren in the chat saying Mark Cuban knows people. That's why the Mavs are getting all them European players.
That's right.
Maybe so, but realistically, only time will tell. I'm excited to see how this series ends up between the Clippers and the Mavs. So
I think it's over, man. I think the Mavs win. Don't they play tonight? I'm pretty sure the Mavs and them played tonight, or is that yesterday they played? No, they played last night.
They did play last night. Sorry, you're right.
So it's not tonight that they play. No, they're playing right now. Yeah, they're playing right now. Well, Jesus.
Well, I'm going to have to check the score on that one.
It's 26-24 Mavs right now.
Okay.
But
competitive close game. So
that's right. We didn't even talk about the East. This was all West. We didn't even talk about the crazy stuff in the East, man, but that's for another show.
That will unfortunately be for another time, but real quick, guys, I want to thank everybody that jumped in here and was interactive in the chat with us tonight. Really fun conversation going there, guys. We do appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all our sponsors, Nick and Ivy Brewing Company out in beautiful downtown Lockport, Illinois, Jonathan Darren team, White Oaks Farm Venue, as well as Mark Berardi. None of this is possible without you guys, so we do appreciate it. And to those that are listening to this on the podcast version, once it's downloaded, we appreciate you as well. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night.